Welcome to the Standing Committee on Finance meeting for Tuesday, January 19th. Madam Clerk, will you read the first item, please?
Order appropriation $18,000 from the Massachusetts Recycling Challenge Grant Program to the Refuge Department Recycling Containers Grant Fund for the purchase of 18 recycling containers of various types for placement at 5 city parks. Invited Honorable Mayor Bill Carpenter, John A. Condon, Chief Financial Officer, Lawrence Rowley, DPW Commissioner, and Patrick Sullivan, Recycling Coordinator.
Before we move forward, I think everybody received notification, but the mayor is at the National League of Cities meetings in Washington, D.C. Won't be here tonight. And also, Councilor Barnes informed me she's home under the weather. I'm sure she's watching, and I'm sure we all wish her a speedy recovery. Mr. Rowley.
Good evening. Councilors, this is a no-match grant that we're going to purchase these 18 containers and put them all over most of them are going to go up to DW Park, and then there's a few going on the outer parks.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Stanisky.
Evening, Mr. Riley. I'm the sponsor on this particular item, and my question was going to be what parks, but you explained that very well. And
I
thank you
did
for
say
that.
DW, but I can give you the other parks they're going to go to. Hold on, let me get it. So 6 of them are going to go in DW Park. 6 and 4, there's 10 of them going there, and then there's 2 going at North Junior High Park, 2 at Hollister, 2 at Charlie Petty's, and 2 at the Hancock.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it's a great item and a great system, and I will be in favor.
Yeah, they're going to be nice-looking containers. They have a hood on them, so everybody can't stuff a lot in them, and debris won't fly away out of them. So,
Excellent.
Motion for favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably to the full City Council. All those in favor? Opposed? Recommended favorably. Madam Clerk, item number 2.
Order that the City Council authorizes the acceptance of a grant in the amount of $1,500 from the Republic Services to supplement the Massachusetts Recycling Challenge Grant Program for the purpose of purchasing 15 area trash containers. Invited Honorable Mayor Bill Carpenter, John A. Condon, Chief Financial Officer, Lawrence Rowley, DPW Commissioner, Patrick Sullivan, Recycling Coordinator.
Good evening, Mr. Rowley.
good evening. These barrels are going to go next to the recycle barrels. So we'll have a recycle barrel, rubbish barrel, and these are also, they don't come with hoods, but we're going to put a hood on them for the same purpose of not stuffing them and debris flying around.
Move to approve.
Second. Isaac.
I would just like to comment, we'll have a lot of happy, I will have a lot of happy constituents. Everybody's been asking for them, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? Opposed? Recommended favorably.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. Item number 3.
Order a transfer of $200,000 from the Police Department Personal Services other than overtime to the Police Department overtime to cover overtime expenditures as a result of vacancies, employees on family medical leave, and new contractual language regarding use of personal days. Invited Honorable Mayor Bill Carpenter, John A. Condon, Chief Financial Officer, John Crowley, Chief of Police.
Good evening, councilors. Just a brief explanation on the source of the funding for this, and then the chief can answer questions with respect to the need for it. But basically, this is a transfer of already appropriated money from the personal services account, where we've had some delays in bringing in the budgeted number of new officers, and the overtime budget has been incurring a rate of expenditure which would not allow it to last the rest of the year. So we're looking to transfer the $200,000 already appropriated from personal services other than overtime to the overtime account. The chief is here for the question.
Chairman, if I might, I've sponsored this also, and I'm familiar with what happens as far as expenditures in the police department. I had a couple of experiences with that, but I just want to make a comment that my only concern was I asked the chief prior to the meeting, and he let me know that the personal days, not the fact that there's one ward, it's the fact they can take it no matter how many are off. That causes an expenditure of funds, and that's just something I'm sure that we'll try to work with. And once again, I'm in favor as far as the transfer of this money, because we're going to need it for what's going on. And keeping in mind that we don't have the officers out of the, actually even into the academy, some of the officers are going to hire. So the money is there. It's not an additional amount of money. It's money from within that is being moved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ianieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Condon, if I might, and I not sure if you even had mentioned this, but pertaining to this particular amount of money being transferred from another line item, and I understand that situation, the money is already appropriated in there. But I guess my concern in question is with the amount of money that we gave the department for this year's budget, which was, I believe, was $900,000 plus.
Yes.
My concern is to the fact that are we at our limit, or is there still some money within that $900,000 there, and this is going to just be added to it, which is going to carry us through to the rest of the fiscal year?
Council, I think the expectation is that absent some form of big disaster where we really had to put a lot of officers on the street, that this will bring us through the remainder of the year. I think the chief can answer that better than I. I don't think the $950,000 is expended fully yet, but it is getting close to being fully expended, and it won't last the rest of the year.
Okay. So that's what this $200,000 is for. So again, not anticipating that we would probably see you or the chief, or getting a request again from the mayor. We should be all set to get us through to June 31st.
That is the expectation, yes, Councilor.
And that is with all of the other things that you indicated with, the people coming on and everything like that. I do, have to say that, it's the first time in the years we worked on the budget where I know the department put in for a request, and usually the mayor, shaves the request, but appropriated $100,000 more to the request, which I didn't say much about it last year because I was there, but now I'm back here. So my concern is, I just want to make sure, and I think we are, spending the money in the right appropriate way.
Yeah.
I understand our situation, and I don't think anybody here is against public safety or not wanting to do anything to make sure that, the city is safe and that the chief has adequate level of service, which is through this, to make sure that, we're doing what we have to do. But I just want to make sure that I just don't want to see somebody come back again, in 60, 90 days and say, well, guess what, we need $150,000, which is going to come out of another line, because then we have to start to ask the question. So that's all I want to know.
I think that's a fair point, Counselor. It's, the problem is basically that your budget is anticipating a certain number of officers to be working on the street. We end up having delays getting them out of into an academy and then out of an academy, and then in the meantime, you have the same staffing issues that you would have had were they already actually on the force. The overtime hours are basically giving you cops on the street, and that's the purpose of it. When we increased the budget at the submission time last year, the idea was to avoid having to do this, but there was also an expectation as to how many people would be on the street during the fall period, and it didn't happen.
Right. Now, we have the 11 new ones out, and do we have another group going in soon? I mean, maybe the chief naturally would know better to answer that. Thank you, Chief. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
We had 9 officers graduate the academy at the end of October. However, they're not in the street yet. They're still in training. It's
Okay.
anticipated to be another 3 to 4 weeks, and they'll be ready to go out on the road.
Okay, great.
So they do not count towards staffing at this time.
I got you. And then are we still looking forward to putting in another group of people before this fiscal year is completed as well?
Right, we're in the process
Say
now.
group 9 or 11,
backgrounds on
whatever.
10.
Okay, so as we go on, I mean, I know we're trying to work at getting our staffing level back to maybe where it was some 30-some-odd years ago. I know that's difficult to do, but as time goes on, I'm sure then overtime would diminish somewhat. I mean, I know it's going to handle a big figure when we get into do the next budget, but at some point, we're going to be able to back off of that a little bit, correct?
Yes, that's the plan, sir.
With the plan? Okay, great. All right, that's all I need to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Condon. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to kind of echo the sentiments of the Ward 3 Councilor. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Relative to, just to kind of backtrack, last year we had to do a supplemental appropriation relative to overtime, and I know a lot of us on the council had some concerns about that, not about the bravery of the men and women, but about the fiscal management. In terms of the 900,000 plus, Mr. Condon said it's not all depleted, but do you have more of an accurate number on how much has been expended to date?
I would guess there's between 50 and 100,000 in there now.
Okay. And then this 2 will bring us to 350 or so.
Yes.
And you're pretty confident that that's going to carry us through without another supplemental?
I'm hoping it does. I mean, I can't sit here right before you and say we're all set, we're not going to be here. I anticipate us to make it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Razak.
Good evening, Chief. Can we just clarify the number of officers? You said there were 9 that are in training.
Right now we have 9 in training.
Okay.
so they don't count towards our total staffing.
Okay. But how many do we have new, this is,
We will have 183 when they're ready. They're ready, they're police officers now, but they don't count towards the total, so we're at 174. Once we start counting them towards our total, which will be in about 3 weeks.
and what about the new ones that are coming in? How many do we have?
10.
10.
So that'll bring us up to 193.
That's what we thought, I thought there was 12 for some reason, but the number's 10?
We have ran into problems with the bilingual list to get from the state. They're requiring us to provide more data to them to show our need for the Cape Verdean Creole and the Haitian Creole and Cape Verdean list. So rather than delay while we were trying to get that information, we decided through the mayor's office to go forward with the 10, try to obtain the data they need, make them happy, and let us go forward with those.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
All set?
Councilor Farwell.
Just a quick question, Chief. How many do you anticipate retiring? What is going to be the net gain between those coming on and those who are retiring, if you know?
My guess is maybe 2 or 3. Again, we have, as you know, people say they're leaving, they don't. People you predict will leave, they don't. And then you always have the surprise, someone that walks in and says, I'm done. I mean, we have some that are long-term IODs that are in the process, but we're not sure how long it's actually going to take for them to leave.
All right, and just for the benefit of us newbies, what is the new contractual language regarding use of personal days that somewhat contributes to this transfer request?
In the last collective bargaining agreement, they increased the number of personal days to 4, and in that, they became automatic days. Each shift is allowed 5 personnel off. If a person comes in, up to 3 people can say, I want to take that day. Regardless, if the book is full, we have to give it to them. So virtually every time that day is used, it creates overtime for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Councilor Snetsky.
just a quick question for the chief. It goes to item number 4, another thing I sponsored tonight. Any idea, Chief, if you know, how much in funding will you be retrieving from the next item? It's a grant to cover the overtime for your phone answerers and
Right,
police officers?
That should cover it all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably to the full city council. All those in favor? All those opposed? Recommended favorably. Item number 4.
Order appropriation $167,365.42 from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security State 9/11 Department Training Grant and EMD Regulatory Compliance Grant to the City of Brockton Police Department State 9/11 Training Grant and EMD Regulatory Compliance Grant Fund to reimburse overtime for ETD police officers and fire department EMD personnel to attend the mandatory 16 hours of emergency 9/11 certification trainings, as well as the cost to pay certified training vendors approved by the state 9/11 department. There is no match required. Invited Honorable Mayor Bill Carpenter, John A. Condon, Chief Financial Officer, John Crowley, Police Chief.
Chief, Jay, you want to give us a background on this?
Yeah, this is to reimburse us for overtime for emergency telephone dispatches, police officers, and fire department EMD personnel to attend a mandatory 16 hours of training for E991 certificate trainings, as well as the cost to pay certified training vendors approved by the state.
Councilor Snetsky.
Move for a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably to the full city council. All those in favor? All those opposed? Recommended favorably. Any items, Councilor Snetsky?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A moment of personal privilege, please.
You may.
I just want to announce, and in particular, employees here at City Hall have done a lot as far as a blood drive that's going to occur. And it occurs again this week, Thursday, January 21st, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., the Kraft Family Blood Drive at Joe Angelo's Cafe, which is on the corner of Crescent and Main Street. And it's a life-saving item, and the people who wanted me to announce this have told me that there will be a hooded sweatshirt given to anybody who donates blood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Razak,
Thank you, Mr. President. A moment of personal privilege, please.
you may.
I'd like to let all our residents know that NeighborWorks of Southern Massachusetts is offering a free tax preparation for all residents starting February 2nd to April 6th, sorry, at the Brockton Main Public Library and at Massasoit Library in the Student Center. You can go on to the NeighborWorks of Southern Mass website, or if you can't find any info, please contact me at 508-840-7957. There are some requirements that you have to meet in order to get your taxes prepared for free, but it's a great event. They've been offering it for the last few years, so I hope people will take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, moment of personal privilege, please.
Anybody? Oh, Councilor Monahan.
Don't forget I voted for you. Councilor Fowler and myself will be hosting a tax abatement workshop tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Arnold School Theater. 6 p.m. tomorrow night. Mr. Conner will be there. Right, okay, so everybody's welcome, so. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock at the Arnold School. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Sullivan,
Mr. Chairman, moment of personal privilege.
you may.
Colleagues, I just wanted to let you know I'm proud to say that my proposal to my colleagues as councilors at large relative to having a quarterly at-large citywide meeting, Councilor Rodriguez, Councilor Farwell, and Councilor Barnes wholeheartedly support this. It's going to be fashioned after respective ward meetings, but we're going to do it every quarter. We're going to start next month. We're going to do it at the middle schools. The first one's going to be next month. We don't have a date determined, but it's going to start at North Junior High or North Middle School. And we're going to do it much like we did 2 years ago. It's open to any and all people that want to come to speak to the 4 councils at large. And we'll continue to give you updates, and we'd love to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, councilors. Just a reminder, we'll be here next Monday night at 8 o'clock for full council. And just a reminder to residents, if we do have this snowstorm this weekend, to pay attention to the off-street parking.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
All right.
Jack, don't get used to these.